Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Saladino. Now, I've said this before. It doesn't matter how much you try to distance yourself from culture war discourse or try to act above it or try to act like, well, that's not really my issue. Doesn't matter. You get pulled into it anyway. You get dragged down to it anyway, because it's what so all your hobbies, games, movies, like action films, superhero films, comic books, what's happening as far as this culture war stuff is literally you're a gamer and you're being attacked by people who hate games, but they're in the industry. They're in surrounding industries like the gaming press. They're sociopaths on Twitter, LGBTQ people, trans people pretending to be trans, who spend all day attacking anything that's straight, anything that involves what men like, fan service, attacking anime constantly, losing their mind over Stellar Blade. Nobody is surprised that Sony censored Stellar Blade after all. And I don't count the hard R-shop thing when I talk about censored, because like I said in my other video, it wasn't something that I don't believe Shift Up intended. It was just something they put there, wasn't thinking about it because they don't know. Hard R is not a slur. That's just something that IGN and Lance McDonald came up with to hurt Stellar Blade. Now, Sony went after that and shot themselves in the foot. And maybe they did it to hurt Shift Up. There's some conspiracy theories now saying that the reason why Sony is censoring Eve's outfits, I don't know how many of the outfits are being censored, but there's a few. It's more than just the bunny swimsuit that people were first talking about. There's several of them that for no reason, well, say no reason, but it's a M-rated game, but they're still censoring these outfits that are not super explicit or anything. They're just sexier. They're just more revealing. Like the bunny outfit, you see the before and after pics. She has the deep V cleavage in the original. And then the second one, they put some lace there and then they cover up more of her hips and thighs. It looks less like a bikini and more of a full, more modest looking thing. And if these outfits look like this in the beginning, nobody would complain. People are not going, I wanted to see nude Eve, because if it comes to PC, people could make all kinds of mods for Eve and they're going to go crazy. They do it for everything. And if it was Leon, the people who hate Eve and the male gaze would lose their minds over Leon being nude, right? So it's just insane that there's so much. People are literally calling for violence against Grumps because he's started a petition to try to get Sony and or Shift Up to restore the game to what it was before this day one patch, which again, I did a whole video about Stellar Blade, probably the biggest video I've had so far, where I talked about, as soon as I heard Sony they didn't buy Shift Up, but Sony was going to publish Stellar Blade. The first thing everybody thought, I thought too, oh, they're going to censor it. I thought the whole reason why they did it was to censor it. And it feels like that's what they're doing now. Now, it doesn't look like, at least not yet, that they've done anything to her curves. And a lot of the outfits still look sexy. But you see that they've still gone in and made them more modest for no reason. This has rated M for mature, but they've taken out a lot of blood. Kyle, I watched part of his stream, but I didn't want to watch anybody play Stellar Blade until I get it and play it myself. But I watched part of Kyle's stream where he's showing the demo version where you fight one of these beasts and Eve gets covered in blood after she does the kill stroke or whatever. But in the actual game version, there's no blood. She's not covered in blood the same way. And it's just, this is an M-rated game. Why are you making these changes for people who are not asking for these changes? The fact that they know you don't want the changes, you don't want the edits, and they still do it, shows just how far and how deep the rot goes. Because you have people who are friends with game journals who hate Eve just because she's an attractive heterosexual woman. They hate her. They hate the fact that men like her. None of us gamers go after anybody else's sort of hobby like this. Like, nobody loses their mind over Baldur's Gate. A lot of people like Baldur's Gate, even though you couldn't create your own character completely. They limited it how you could create your character in Baldur's Gate 3. But people still said, hey, this is a great game. People have certain critiques of it. People make fun of the bear sex and a lot of the queer stuff in it. But nobody says it shouldn't exist. But when it comes to straight men saying Eve is hot, she looks great, like the jiggle physics, like that ass, all this stuff, they're acting like this is assault on women everywhere. The same people who are fine with men claiming to be women invading women's spaces get mad at straight men celebrating a sexy, attractive, fictional female character. They don't like it, and they treat it all as if we're the bad guys, like we're doing something wrong to people by saying this chick is hot. Because they have an agenda, because this culture war stuff is literally people, gamers, who are in the hobby, who want to enjoy the hobby, and then activists who don't care about this stuff, who are just here to destroy it because it's political for them. So you have politics versus art and entertainment. And the politics is being treated as if it's more important. And there's so many people, there's connections within Sony, connections within like IGN and Kotaku, random assholes like Lance McDonald, these different people who all collude and get together to go after, like even Sony is going after the game they're publishing. And somebody said, oh, they think it's because they're trying to devalue Shift Up so they can buy it. And I could see that. I could see them trying to do something like that. I'm not saying that's really what's going on, but it just seems to me like, why are you shooting yourself in the foot? And then when people say, you don't need to edit this, you don't need to censor it, you're giving a win to people who are trying to destroy you. And then people who defend it, like these middle of the road, like simp content creators who think that they're like the good guys, will come in and say, why are you making such a big deal over a little bit of fabric? It's like, if it's not a big deal, why are you making the change? And why do you think it's something you need to argue about? Because it's not a big deal. That's the whole point. This is what the culture war is about. Gamers are just enjoying themselves. And then other people come in and say, this is hurting and damaging me somehow. So you need to take it away. So you're not even supposed to be here. If you don't like it, go. Like, if you don't like games with fan service, if you don't like anime with fan service, nobody's subjecting you to it. You don't have to be a part of it. It's like a Demian TV, a couple of videos of his ago. He was talking about Warhammer, and there was some people on Twitter talking about Warhammer should be about romance because the war theme is boring. And somebody was like, well, it's called Warhammer. If you took out the war and put romance in it, it wouldn't be Warhammer. And some asshole who had to be trolling goes, no, the war is boring. Change it so I can become a part of it. And it's like, you have to be trolling. Nobody's this stupid to say, take Warhammer and make it about romance because war is boring. No, these people know what they're doing. They're trolling. They think this stuff is funny. They know that they're taking something away from people who enjoy the hobby and pretending like they're the victims because they don't want to be a part of it. Like, you're not being held out of it. You're free to come in and be a part of it. But if the things that are in it, you're against ideologically, politically, you have mental issues or whatever, then fine, go away. Go do something else. You're not being prevented from getting into games or comics or anything. But not everything has to be made for you. It's not even, the culture war is not even one side of gamers versus another side of gamers. It's literally gamers versus everybody who hates games versus queer activists who hate straight sex, who hate men liking women, men who think that they're women who don't want to compete with real women. It's journalists who pretend to care about games, but they don't care about games. They just don't want straight men having games that they like. So it's just crazy. I'm not surprised that Sony did this. Other people are saying that Shift Up is also to blame. It's not that they were just having to agree with Sony because Sony, put all this money into publishing it and they're in charge because it's a Sony exclusive. But also apparently they've done this to Nikkei too. I don't know. People have said that. And the fact that Shift Up put out that tweet talking about uncensored on all platforms in all countries and all regions, and then day one they get a patch censoring it, is absurd and it's insane. I'm not at the point where I would say boycott the game, particularly because at least her curves still seem to be there. Eve's curves are still there. Jiggle physics seem to be there. A lot of outfits still look great despite the alterations. And I do want to see a game like that succeed because I know, IGN, Lance McDonald, all these other people want it to fail. Kotaku, the gamer, they want this game to fail because they have an agenda that they care more about than actual games. They care more about the politics. They care more about like female representation. Like I've said this, I put out a video I had already done months ago talking about, my hobby is not your soapbox. Like this gaming is not a platform to make women feel better about themselves. So you have people writing articles about Stellar Blade complaining about Eve not being great representation for women when gamers are not asking for great representation for women. And that's just an ideological issue. If you don't like sexy women and you don't think that that's great representation for women, that's your problem. But gamers don't care about that. We're not asking for women to be like, I don't know what they expect. They want her to look ugly. They want her to look like MJ. Because like everybody's saying when they talk about this censorship stuff here, Abby was fully nude in that sex scene. It was not edited at all. She looked disgusting. And so that's why it's fine to be there. Because you're not going to find it attractive anyway. So fine. It's not really sexual. It's just like a slab of meat sitting there. And that's what they want. They want to take sex and sexual feeling out of things. They just want it to be this disgusting, like this furry stuff. People screwing bears and all this stuff. But yeah, I'm not going to boycott Stellar Blade because it looks still like it looks great. So it's one of those things like when they keep saying, why you make a big deal of this? The big deal is if it wasn't a big deal, why make the changes to begin with? But if the new version of the bunny outfit that Eve has always looked like that, that would be fine. It would look great. But since we see that there was obviously an even better version of it, and they've changed it to this one, this more modest version, now people go, we're not children. We're not sociopaths complaining about fan service. We want the fan service. We're cool with the fan service. Even if we don't need the fan service, it's cool to have it, especially since this is our hobby. The people who are against this don't care about the hobby like that. They want to destroy the hobby. And they're here talking about representing women. Like, this is not a great representation of women. The game itself is great. It's fun to play, but it's not a great representation of women. That's not why you play video games. Nobody gives a shit about empowering women when you play a video game. But these people do, because it's not about playing games. It's about playing games with what people like because they want to take it from them. And them being straight men.